Welcome to F-Bomb History.
Every evening when the sun goes down, get with my party and I begin to clown. I don't care what the people are thinking. I'm not drunk, I'm just a drinking. I set 'em up, another round. I set 'em up, another round. I set 'em up, another round. One more round won't get me down.
Welcome to F-Bomb History. I'm Pat.
I'm Bert.
Alright, I'm a guy who's written like 6 books on the Revolutionary War, and I've been researching history for a good chunk of my life.
I've been doing the history thing for most of my life too. We've been doing this together for about 40 years or so, and I do technical advising for TV shows and films like The Patriot, Turn Washington Spies, and do some other like armor work on other shows that are out there as well.
Alright, so what we're doing here, this is called F-Bomb History. It started as a concept of we sit around a fire and we tell people our version of history. It usually involves a lot of drinking and involves a lot of cussing, but everybody thought it was funny as hell and they learned a lot too. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to tell you about probably one of the greatest geniuses in military history.
Dude, he was
in American history.
What
an awesome guy he is.
Fucking douche canoe is what he was.
We're going to talk about George Armstrong Custer.
What a fucking asshole.
Alright, now, tell me about his early beginnings there with his awesomeness.
So, this freaking clown comes out of Ohio, right? Rumsfeld,
Ohio. Ohio with assholes on both ends.
Ohio. Comes out of Ohio, gets accepted into West Point, somehow gets into West Point, and he's in the class of 1861. This is problematic. Because there's some things going on. Graduates last in his class, the GOAT. The dude that just like scraped all the skin off his ass trying to get out of school and graduate. Which is again problematic because half of his class already left and went to the Confederacy, and the other, there's another great big chunk of his class that quit early to go get in the war. So he was the last of those guys. So who knows where he'd have fallen. But he was the GOAT. But because he was this flamboyant, Mr. Flowery, super leader dude, all these generals took great interest in him that he was going to be some great cavalry leader.
Now, he basically came along and he had a couple of high-ranking generals that were backing him up. And they thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
Now, he became one of the youngest generals probably in nation's history.
He was breveted though. He was a brevet major general. Brevet is okay, what brevet means is you're a lieutenant, but because we're running out of officers, we're going to make you a general. You're the fastest reader in the slow class.
Now, he's a general when he's 23. I mean, there's 23-year-olds right now that don't know how to make a good coffee, but he's ending up commanding entire armies. Now, check it out. His
generals in New York City, or there's 23-year-olds in New York City can't drop a stick shift. Just saying.
Yeah, got that right. Now, his first, well, I don't want to say his first, probably his first action where he became his fame began. And also, you get to see the strategy of Custer, where he usually goes around getting half of his men killed. But it was in Gettysburg. Now, the first part of Gettysburg was a couple days before the main fight. And they're working their way to Gettysburg. This is on July 2nd. He bumps into the Confederate cavalry. Now, the Confederate cavalry, he constantly kept bumping into is Stuart. Now, Stuart is kind of a flamboyant little showboat of himself, even though...
Stuart.
Yeah, but he was very...
it's true.
Flamboyant. I mean, the guy he was like a
big
cavalier.
Feather, big ostrich feather.
Oh, yeah.
Huge
Big
beard,
red cape and all that good stuff.
Red cape, whole 9 yards.
It was fabulous. Now, Stuart... he bumps into the Yankees at Hunterstown, Pennsylvania, and Custer sees him first. So Custer decides, I'm going to set up an ambush.
Oh, he set up a baited ambush. That was the thing. It was like this Polish baited ambush because he put guys on both sides of the road.
Yeah.
So they're shooting at each other, sort of. And then he friggin' grabs a third of his men, like a company of guys, or he grabs all these dudes and runs them down the middle of the road until he runs into the Confederates.
Yeah, he's got 200 guys. He says, come on, Wolverines, and
That's
charges down the road
that was their...
right at the Confederates. Now, what happened was an equal number of Confederates slammed him, charged back. Now, Hunter is being hit left, right, and center from everything. He didn't expect the response when he went down the road, and so he's a horse shot out from him. He's on his feet. He's supposed to be a cavalry guy, and he's on the ground.
Luckily, a dude comes by. One of his Joes was like, "Oh, look, it's the general, I guess."
Yeah,
it looks like he's 12.
He's fucked.
And he's on the ground. Let me go ahead and grab him and pull him up on the back of my horse because saving his ass.
This guy is called Churchill, and so he basically whips out a pistol, blows away one of the Southerners, tells Custer, "Get on my fucking horse," and Custer, of course, leaves him. That's another thing. But anyway, Custer rides away. But in his first major engagement at Gettysburg, he does. He gets half of his people killed.
Almost 50%. Loses almost 50%. Hold on to that thought. It's a thing.
Yes.
It's a thing. 50%. We're going to hold on to that.
All right. Well, first off, we're going to talk about July 3rd, which is the big day in Gettysburg. It was the time of Pickett's charge. But we're going to take it over to Haley so she can tell you what the weather was like.
Take it away, Haley.
Thanks, Bert. The third day of Gettysburg saw partly cloudy skies with a high of 87 and a low of 73. In the evening, there were thunderstorms rolling in to rain on the fourth day.
Hey, and we're back. Thanks, Haley, for that enlightening weather update on July 3rd of 1863. So, I'm running a little low. Bartender.
Hey, bartender. Your man, look at it. And all 1, 2, 3, 4 glasses of beer.
Got a great pour.
All right.
Great pour. Nice. Good shot.
We'll just edit in the trash.
Yeah. Hey, good ear. That's good. That's good.
One more?
No, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. Next part of Custer's magnificent adventures. We're going to talk about the big day in Gettysburg. The big day was, of course, the day that Lee decided to go right up the middle at Pickett's charge. But for him to do that, he also wanted his cavalry to come around behind on the flank and get basically what was supposed to happen was he was going to slam into the area where Pickett's charge was, but from the rear. And he was going to have his cavalry come in from the rear and hit them and bust it up. Now, this whole thing started with Stuart.
Because, Stuart decided to show up finally.
Yeah, well, that is true. This is
whole other story. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll get that in another segment of Drunk History where we do Pickett's charge and the whole thing was Stuart. But yeah, Stuart really had basically him and Lee, it's a whole nother story. Anyway, so, yeah, big time. Now, 11 o'clock, Stuart is in place. He's at this farm. Now, this is now known as East Cavalry Field because of what happened there. But it was a farm. It was a rumble farm. Now, he's sitting there, and he's ready to move. Now, this is some amazing stuff, because the day before he had radios, you got to tell your commander you're in position. So what does he do? He puts 4 cannons facing north, south, and east and west, and pulls the trigger on all of them. Booyah! So all 4 are going off. Now, the bad news is, all the Yankees down the valley there where the farm is, they went, what's that?
What?
There's somebody up there. And they start looking. Now, the Yankees realize there's Confederates up there, and they're massing. So what happens next is, as the Confederates start moving down the ridge line, this crest ridge, the Yankees are set up with their artillery and start slamming them, hitting them. Now, the Confederates have their artillery also. Even though they're a cavalry unit, everybody had artillery.
It's mobile.
Yeah.
Cavalry, mobile, like mountain howitzers, stuff like that.
So
guns.
So these cannons, it becomes an artillery duel for a while. Now this goes on because if you know anything about history, Pickett's charge didn't happen until 1 in the afternoon. Well, at 11 o'clock is when Stuart fires his full-away recognition signal. But so for the next couple of hours, the artillery's just pounding back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Stuart's waiting. And he's waiting for that moment that he knows the attack is going to go down. Now, what happens next is Custer is ordered to go forward to the farm and put all of his skirmishers out there. Now, as Stuart comes down off of this ridge, Custer's men have got Spencer rifles. And so what he's got is he's got a rifle that is seriously faster firing than a muzzleloader.
This is important later, because he's carrying firepower that was really important to the battle that later on was, yeah.
Yeah, so basically a Spencer rifle. Everybody else is firing a musket or something like that where you, on one bullet at a time. Meanwhile, a Spencer rifle, how many bullets did a Spencer rifle fire?
It was a 7-round magazine, because you could say you can load a Spencer on Sunday and shoot it all week long.
Yeah. So basically, they're firing Spencers and they're keeping Stuart away. Now, what happens next is Stuart finally realizes, okay, it's 1 o'clock, they're starting Pickett's charge, I gotta move. So he decides to roll the dice, gamble it, and just charge right through the goddamn middle and slam into the Yankees.
Problem is, there's a fence there.
Yeah, there's a big fucking fence.
It's a big fence.
And if you know anything about Pickett's charge...
And horses and fences.
Yeah.
Not so
Well,
much.
even at Pickett's charge, there was a fence that slowed everything down. The same thing happened at this farm.
And the fences there are like 5 miles.
Now, he charged forward, and Custer then decided he's doing... Custer's one tactic that he knew... More than anything else.
Charge!
Forward. What? Wolverines! Forward. So
Charge.
he sees the Confederates charging, he charges, and they both hit the fence at the same time. There is this ugly little fight that goes on for like, I swear, 20 minutes, where neither one can get past the fence. They all got their pistols on their side, like, for 20 minutes.
Back and forth.
Now,
No good.
what finally then
Didn't
happens is the fence finally falls apart, probably from bullet holes. But the fence finally falls apart, and when it does, Custer is now overwhelmed, and he has to start pulling back, and he retreats. Now, Stuart decides, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. He lines up the cavalry and charges, and he goes from a walk to a gallop. What the fuck is a walk to a gallop? He's a horse guy.
Okay, a walk is approximately 4 miles an hour. All right, a trot is in between a walk and a gallop. A trot, that's the bouncy one. The trot is about 6 miles an hour. The gallop is what burns your horse down, which is about 8 miles an hour or more, and it'll burn your horse up. But when you go to a gallop, you're pretty much skinned back and rolling.
Anyway, it had murmurs of admiration from the Yankees. Are like, whoa, that's freaking pretty. And
He did that really good.
He just did it in such a way that they went, oh, I wish my horse could do that. Now, what happened was they
Get that all the
walked.
time.
This is basically what happened. If you know anything about the Battle of Balaclava, boldly they go into the Valley of Death, the brave 600. That's what happened to Stuart. They went into the valley and all around in basically a U-shaped ambush. He is hit on 3 sides, and he is chewed up.
It's pretty bad.
But the thing is, Stuart realizes speed is security. Even though my men are getting chewed up, the faster I move, the less they can hit me.
Hey, back in the 19th century, even in the 18th century, if you're on a horse, you're basically a fighter pilot.
Yeah, it's like Beersheba. We'll get in Beersheba another episode.
That's
but basically,
better.
you move so fast that the enemy can't hit you. So even though they're being chewed up on the edges, they're able to punch through because they're moving fast.
Quick.
Now, what happened
Fast
next,
hurry.
though, is because he had lost so many, even though they're moving fast, Custer and some of the other Yankees are able to hit them again from another area, and Stuart realizes we're about to get slaughtered. So he withdraws. Now, Custer tries to pursue him, but Custer also gets his, he literally lost half his men. In this entire fight, once again,
Remember? Half.
48%.
Only 48%.
Which is
That's still fucking half. That's half. That's fucking half.
You round it up, kind of, sort of, it's half. So he lost 48% of his men again.
It's becoming a trend.
Next time on F-Bomb History.
Dead horses. 250 of
Came
them.
home last night, all full of lush. My babe began to fuss, and I said, honey, hush. I don't care what the people are thinking. I'm not drunk, I'm just drinking. I said, Mother, I'm not around. I said, Mother.